The hardest part about falling from the 40th floor isn't the hit, it's the view on the way down. 6 months ago, I was Freya Vance. I was the golden girl of Sterling and Associates. My morning routine was a choreographed dance of power, a $5 espresso, a dry-cleaned Armani suit, and a leather briefcase that cost more than my first car. I walked through the lobby of the Sterling building, and the security guards would stand a little straighter. The receptionists would offer a polite, terrified smile. I was the senior analyst. I was the person who found the money that other people tried to hide. Then came Marcus. Marcus was the CEO's nephew. He had a smile that looked like it was practiced in a mirror, and a handshake that felt like a trap. He didn't just want a job at the firm, he wanted the throne, and I was sitting in his way. I remember the Tuesday it happened. The air in the office felt heavy, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. Marcus called me into the conference room. He didn't look at me. He looked at a stack of folders on the table, folders I had never seen before. He told me there were irregularities. He said $2 million had vanished from the employee pension fund, and the digital fingerprint led directly to my private server. I remember laughing. I thought it was a joke. But then the HR director walked in with 2 security guards and a cardboard box. "Freya," Marcus said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy, "I know how much pressure you've been under with your father's medical bills. If you just confess, we might not involve the police." I didn't confess because I hadn't done it. But Marcus was a master of the digital lie. He had spent months planting evidence, spoofing my IP address, and creating a paper trail that made me look like a common thief. I was escorted out of the building in front of everyone. I saw my colleagues look away. I saw Marcus standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, sipping a glass of scotch, watching as I hit the sidewalk. In the corporate world, a reputation is everything. Once Marcus branded me a thief, I was radioactive. The legal fees to clear my name swallowed my savings in 3 months. My friends, people I had known for a decade, stopped answering my texts. My luxury apartment was seized by the bank. By the 4th month, I was living in a 12 by 12 studio above a 24-hour laundromat. The smell of detergent and despair was my new perfume. I applied for 300 jobs. I was overqualified for some and morally compromised for the rest. When the hunger finally outweighed my pride, I took a job at Clean Sweep Industrial. Now I enter the Sterling building at 10 p.m. I don't enter through the grand rotating doors anymore. I enter through the service entrance, next to the dumpsters. I don't wear silk. I wear a heavy, stiff gray jumpsuit with Freya embroidered in white thread over my heart. I don't carry a briefcase. I push a squeaky yellow mop bucket. The first night was the hardest. I had to clean the 40th floor, my floor. I stood outside my old office. Marcus's name was already on the door. I could see the silhouette of my favorite orchid on the desk. I stood there for 10 minutes. The mop handle trembling in my hands, until a voice startled me. "The dust doesn't care who you used to be, girl. It just wants to be moved." I turned around to see an old man leaning against the wall. He was short, with shoulders that were permanently hunched, and hands that looked like they had been carved out of old oak. He had a mop in one hand and a cigarette tucked behind his ear. "I'm Arthur," he said, "the night shift lead. You the new girl?" I nodded, unable to speak. Arthur looked at my hands. My manicured nails were already chipped and broken. He looked at the way I held the mop, like it was a foreign weapon. "You're one of them," he said, not as an insult, but as an observation. "A high flyer who hit the ground. Don't worry, in this building, the higher they fly, the louder they pop. You just happened to pop a little early." Arthur became my only anchor. Every night during our 2 a.m. break, we'd sit in the basement boiler room. It was the only place in the building that Marcus's perfection didn't reach. It was hot, loud, and smelled of rust, but it was honest. I told Arthur about the frame-up. I told him how Marcus had destroyed my life for a title. Arthur would listen while he ate a ham sandwich he brought in a tin box. He never judged. He just watched the steam rise from the pipes. "You think you're invisible now, don't you?" Arthur asked one night. "I am," I replied. "Marcus walked right past me tonight while I was scrubbing the elevator. He didn't even blink. He looked through me like I was air." Arthur smiled, showing a missing tooth. "That's your power, Freya. People tell the truth to the air. They say things in front of the janitor they wouldn't even tell their priest. They think we're furniture, but furniture has ears." One night, Arthur took me to a corner of the basement I hadn't seen before. It was a locked cage behind the industrial furnace. Inside were hundreds of clear plastic bags, all filled with cross-cut shredded paper. They were labeled by date and department. "Arthur," whispered Arthur. I looked at him, confused. "Arthur, it's trash." "To them it's trash," said Arthur, picking up a bag. "But to me it's a puzzle. When Marcus's father ran this place, he tried to fire me because I saw him taking a kickback from a contractor. He couldn't fire me because I had the documents. Now Marcus is doing the same thing. He thinks he's clever because he uses the high-end shredder. He thinks it's impossible to put back together." Arthur pulled a small modified scanner out of his tool belt. He explained that he'd been using a software program he'd bought from a hacker years ago. It scanned the shreds and digitally reassembled them like a jigsaw puzzle. "I've been watching Marcus's bin for 6 months," Arthur said. "He's not just stealing the pension fund, he's selling the company's intellectual property to a rival firm in Singapore. He's going to crash Sterling and Associates, take the payout, and leave 3,000 people without a job or a retirement." My heart began to race. "Do you have proof?" Arthur handed me a tablet. On the screen was a reconstructed email. It was Marcus talking to a contact named the Phoenix. The date was the day before I was fired. "The Vance girl is getting too close to the ledger. I'm moving the final transfer tonight. I'll pin the IP leak on her. Once she's out, the floor is clear for the final liquidation." I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a heat I hadn't felt in months. It was rage. Pure, cold, calculated rage. He didn't just fire me. He used me as a smokescreen for his biggest theft yet. "He's doing it again," Arthur said. "There's a gala next Friday, a legacy dinner. Marcus is going to announce a merger, but the merger is a lie. It's a shell company. The moment the signatures are dry, the money disappears." I spent the next week living 2 lives. By day, I slept fitfully in my studio, dreaming of code and spreadsheets. By night, I was a ghost in the halls of Sterling. Arthur taught me the janitor's path, the service ducts, the crawl spaces, and the blind spots in the security cameras that the guards were too lazy to monitor. I wasn't just cleaning anymore. I was planting bugs. I was using the keyloggers Arthur had built from old cell phone parts to capture Marcus's passwords. On Wednesday night, I was dusting the vents in Marcus's office when the door opened. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was Marcus and his lead bookkeeper, a red-haired woman named Tiffany. "Is the Vance girl still a problem?" Tiffany asked, her voice nervous. Marcus laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Freya? She's probably scrubbing toilets in Jersey by now. She was smart, but she was soft. She believed in the sanctity of the firm. She never understood that a firm is just a piggy bank if you have the right hammer." "The police are still asking questions about the pension fund," Tiffany said. "Let them ask. I've already planted the confession note in her old apartment's cloud drive. If they get too close, we just discover the evidence. By the time they realize it's fake, we'll be on a beach in a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. I stayed perfectly still in the shadows. I had my phone recording every word. When they left, I climbed down. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the thrill of the hunt. I went to the basement and showed Arthur the recording. I said, "We have them." "Not yet," Arthur cautioned. "We have talk. We need the transfer. We need to catch them with their hands in the vault." The night of the Sterling and Associates Legacy Gala arrived like a predator in a tuxedo. The building, usually a silent monolith after dark, thrummed with 1,000 voices. Champagne flowed like water. Laughter echoed off the marble floors. Marcus, resplendent in a custom-tailored suit, stood on a podium in the grand ballroom, his smile blinding. He was surrounded by the city's elite, ready to announce his merger. I wasn't in the ballroom. I was in my gray jumpsuit, pushing my mop bucket toward the 40th floor. The disguise was perfect. No one looked at me. No one saw me. I was just part of the background hum, a phantom gliding through the celebration. My heart was hammering. Arthur was in the basement, hunched over his makeshift battle station, a repurposed cleaning cart with a laptop, an array of blinking lights, and his scanner. He was patching me into the firm's main server, giving me eyes and ears where no one expected them. My earpiece crackled with Arthur's voice. "He's in his office, Freya. 10 minutes. He's making the final transfer before he goes on stage." I dumped my mop bucket and grabbed a small, nondescript cleaning kit. Inside, hidden beneath rags and spray bottles, was my secret weapon, a highly modified USB drive. It wasn't just a data stick, it was a digital ghost. It contained the algorithm Arthur and I had been building for weeks, a program designed to detect Marcus's transfer, intercept it, redirect it, and then trigger a public data dump. I reached Marcus's office. The door was unlocked. He was there, hunched over his computer, his face illuminated by the glow of the screen. He was typing furiously, a smirk playing on his lips. His phone was held to his ear, a hushed conversation about finalizing the offshore route. I slipped inside, moving like the shadow Arthur had taught me to be. Marcus didn't even turn around. He thought he was alone. I moved to Marcus's server rack tucked away in the corner of his office, the same server rack I had installed when I was still Freya Vance, senior analyst. With practiced speed, my hands flew. I plugged in my USB drive. It glowed a faint, ominous red. The program initiated, a silent symphony of code infiltrating Marcus's network. My earpiece buzzed. "It's working, Freya. He's trying to send it now. The Phoenix Trust. It's live." On Marcus's screen, I saw the transfer begin. $50 million flashing across the screen, headed for a numbered account in the Cayman Islands. But on my silent, hidden laptop screen, mirrored through Arthur's basement hub, I watched as the program intercepted it. The destination changed. The routing numbers shifted. The money was being funneled directly back into the Sterling and Associates Employee Pension Fund, just as Arthur and I had designed. My hands hovered over the keyboard. One more command. The Public Disclosure Protocol. This would push all of Marcus's incriminating data, the emails, the forged documents, the recorded conversations, to the company's main server, where it would auto-publish to every digital screen in the building. Marcus suddenly slammed his hand on the desk, his phone still glued to his ear. "It's gone! The money! It's not going through!" He spun around, his eyes wild. He saw me standing there, not in a jumpsuit, but in my old Armani jacket that I'd secretly kept hidden in Arthur's locker, pulled over my uniform. My face was no longer invisible. "Freya!" he gasped, his face draining of color. "How are you? What?" I didn't answer. I looked him dead in the eyes and pressed the final key. Down in the grand ballroom, Marcus's co-conspirators and the entire city's elite watched in horror. The massive presentation screen behind the podium, which was supposed to showcase Sterling and Associates' impressive merger, suddenly flickered. It didn't show the company logo. It showed Marcus's personal bank statements. It showed the emails where he discussed framing that bitch Freya. It showed a video clip of him throwing that ashtray at my feet, boasting about the idiots he was robbing. And then it showed the live feed of his computer screen, the failed $50 million transfer, the redirected funds, and the look of absolute panic on his face as he stared at me. The silence in that ballroom was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It stretched, thick and suffocating, until the first scream broke it. A woman, an elderly former employee who recognized her pension fund account numbers, shrieked. Then another. Chaos erupted. Up in his office, Marcus lunged at me. He was no longer the composed shark. He was a cornered animal. I sidestepped, my corporate training suddenly useful in a physical fight. He stumbled, catching himself on his desk. "You ruined me!" he screamed, his voice raw. "You ruined me first," I replied, my voice steady, "and you forgot one thing, Marcus. I designed this system. I knew all the back doors you didn't even know existed." The door to his office burst open, not Marcus's private security, but two uniformed police officers. They moved quickly, efficiently, snapping handcuffs around Marcus's wrists. He was screaming, yelling about defamation, about false accusations. They ignored him. As they led him out, his eyes found mine one last time. He spat at my feet. "You're nothing but a cleaner," he hissed. I leaned in and whispered, "I'm the person who empties your trash, Marcus, and I've seen everything you've tried to hide." The trial was the biggest scandal in the city's history. It lasted 6 agonizing weeks. Marcus tried to blame everyone, even Arthur, but the evidence was overwhelming. The reassembled shredder documents, the keylogger data, the recorded confessions, and the undeniable digital trail of the redirected funds. My testimony, backed by Arthur's meticulous records, painted a picture of corporate corruption that stunned the nation. Marcus got 20 years in federal prison. His co-conspirators, including Tiffany, received significant sentences. The $50 million was recovered, and the employees' pension fund was fully restored. I was given a whistleblower award, a sum so significant it could buy back my old life 10 times over. The media hounded me. They wanted the story of the golden girl who fell and rose again. They wanted the glamour. But that wasn't my story. My story was about Arthur. After the trial, Arthur wasn't in the basement anymore. He was sitting on a park bench, looking lost. The firm had shut down temporarily for restructuring. He had no more trash to sort, no more secrets to uncover. The invisible man was suddenly exposed to the light, and he didn't know how to exist in it. I found him there. He looked at me, a flicker of his old self in his eyes. "So, Freya," he said, his voice raspy, "you got your life back." "We got our lives back, Arthur," I corrected him, "and this is just the beginning." I used the whistleblower money not to buy back my old apartment or my fancy car, but to start a new firm. We called it the Golden Ledger Investigations. Our mission? To protect the invisible workers, the people who see everything but are never believed. We specialized in corporate forensics, auditing, and exposing fraud from the inside out. Arthur wasn't a janitor anymore. He was my chief forensic auditor. His office wasn't in the basement. It was a corner office with a view, filled with state-of-the-art shredder reassembly technology. He still drank his terrible vending machine coffee, but now it was from a mug that said, "World's Best Archivist." A lot of people ask me what I learned from everything that happened. They expect me to talk about the cutthroat world of finance or the intricacies of digital forensics, but I tell them what Samuel taught Margaret in your story, that kindness and being seen are the only things that matter. I still take the bus sometimes. I still talk to the night shift cleaners, the security guards, the delivery drivers, because the world is full of people who think they are invisible. These are the people who hold the keys to the kingdom. They see the truth that the powerful try to hide. Marcus thought he could bury me. He forgot that I'm the one who knows how to dig. He thought he could dismiss Arthur as just a janitor. He forgot that Arthur knew where all the bodies were buried. My daughter Eleanor is 4 now. My son David is in college, studying computer science. I tell them stories about the Golden Ledger. I tell them about how a simple cleaning cart and an old man's hidden archive brought down a corrupt empire. I remember my first day back in the Sterling building, not as Freya Vance, the senior analyst, but as Freya Vance, the CEO of the Golden Ledger, walking in through the main doors. The new security guards still stood straighter. The new receptionists still offered respectful smiles, but this time it felt different. It felt earned. I walked past Marcus's old office, now occupied by a new ethical CEO. I went down to the basement. Arthur was there, meticulously organizing a new batch of shredded documents from a new client. He looked up, his eyes twinkling. "Another one for the ledger, Freya?" he asked. "Another one for the ledger, Arthur," I replied. "The dust always settles, but the truth always comes out." Never underestimate the person the world ignores. They are the only ones who see the truth. If you loved this twisted justice, hit that subscribe button. I'm Freya, and the trash has finally been taken out.